Hey guys, it's John here. Today we are going to take some time to do a little bit of a backstory and a little bit of about me, my journey of getting it to where I'm at today with my business, just my life in general too. It's definitely been a fun journey. It hasn't been always the easiest. I mean, that's like anyone's story, but it has been so fun. I've definitely enjoyed every single bit of it, and I cannot wait to kind of share it with you guys. For those of you guys that are new here, my name is John. I am a luxury gardener here in Arizona. We go to people's houses. We take care of their containers and flower beds. We do cut flower gardens for them. We don't necessarily do like lawn stuff or like shrubs. We leave those to the landscapers, but we do all the like finishing touches in a landscape. We also have a container garden in our backyard where we fill it with the best and most abundant seasonal blooms, and it's just so fun changing out all of those containers. So fun. We do more of a like one plant per pot kind of style in our backyard, and then clump them all together to make a really pretty symphony of flowers. And then we take out plants as they're going out of season and then tuck in new plants as they're going into season. And then we also sell seeds, corms, bulbs, and plants on our website. So that's been really fun to source plants and provide some beautiful flowers, unique ones for you guys. I'm currently 28 years old. We live in Arizona. I live with my partner Kyle and our two dogs, Renly and Rose. They are so fun to have in the garden. I mean, just in general too, but they are the best puppies. They are full of energy. We have to take them swimming about every other day just to release some of that energy. They are just full of it, but they're so fun. I love having them around. Renly is 10 and a half and Rose is 3 and a half. Rose is Renly's uncle. Yeah, Rose is Renly's uncle. So, or no, niece, yes. Rose is Renly's niece. So yeah, they've been really fun to have. Rose does get into our plants sometimes, not all the time. We used to use a lot of like organic fertilizer in the garden, and she would always, Renly would do this too, but she would always stick her nose in literally everything that had a little bit of a smell to it, so we stopped using that. And we also used to grow a lot of like tomatoes and strawberries, more vegetable things, and they have eaten basically everything, all the fruit basically. So we would come home to tomatoes without, there were green tomatoes that were just totally missing, strawberries with green strawberries totally missing, zucchinis with little tiny ones totally missing. They wouldn't touch the leaves or the rest of the plant. They literally would just eat the flower. That's not the flowers, the fruit. So that was nice. So at that point, we're just like, yeah, we're gonna mainly stick with flowers. So if you don't really see us growing a lot of vegetables, it's mainly for that reason. Although I do love flowers a lot more than vegetables at the current time. You know, that always changes, but I do wish to have a little tiny vegetable patch with lots of tomatoes and strawberries, those types of things. In the future, when we have a property where we can kind of like close it off to the dogs. Right now our backyard's just like totally open, so we can't really do that right now, but one day it'll happen. So I guess we should take this journey back to where I like originally first started garden. I was a kid, I don't know, maybe like 6 to 8 range. My mother loved having a vegetable garden, so I would help her plant and kind of pick vegetables in there. I just remember picking a cucumber that was like the size of my forearm at the time. I mean, that probably wasn't that big really, but as a kid, you think everything is absolutely massive. So we picked some cucumbers. I remember my neighbor had some vegetables too that she would let us go like pick in there. It was really fun. So that was kind of like my first memories of gardening. And then fast forward, we moved into a different house a couple of years later. And I was still very fascinated by it. I kind of took over the gardening role, at least like vegetable gardening. So I planned all of the tomatoes, the peppers, you know, mainly vegetables really, because my mom loved vegetables. So we planted a ton of vegetables when I first started growing, and it was great. I remember tomatoes that were taller than me, which Again, as like an 8 or 10-year-old, I feel like everything's taller than you, but it was just fascinating to have these big tomato plants that I planted with my mom. And I was particular for the like cherry tomatoes just because I could like pick them off and just eat them right away. I didn't have to like go inside and cut them. So I loved having cherry tomatoes in the garden. That was probably my favorite thing to plant at the time. And then I slowly started to dabble into flowers. I loved flowers. I really started to grow a lot of like marigolds because it was like a companion plant for the vegetables. So we would plant marigolds between all of the tomato plants and pepper plants. And I thought they were just really pretty. And I'm like, wow, I need to plant more and more flowers. And that's kind of where my love for flowers began. We had a local nursery that was kind of close to us. It was probably like, I don't know, maybe half a mile away from our home when I lived in Michigan. And I was in like my early teenage years at this point. So I would ride my bike to the nursery and just pick up all sorts of stuff, vegetables, flowers, and then take them home and plant them. It was just kind of like a fun activity to do, especially in like the dog days of summer when I was out of school and just wanted something to do. We would just take bike rides up to the nursery and buy some plants. This was Telly's nursery, by the way, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But I just remember I picked out a sunflower plant. I vividly remember picking this plant out and planting it. And I was so proud of this sunflower plant because it was like, I don't know, like 3 feet tall. They were selling some massive sunflower plants. I planted it and I took my mom outside, showed the plant, and she was so happy with it. And then the next morning I came out and it was like half of it was gone. It was just disappeared. And I was like, oh my God, like what happened? Did a storm come in the middle of the night that I wasn't aware of? Like, did someone come and just like vandalize our plants? Like what happened? Later to find out that it was a deer. A deer just munched on our entire sunflower plant. I basically just planted deer food for them. So that was a fun little learning lesson that deer like to eat sunflowers. And yeah, I was quite sad after that, but I just went to the nursery and bought some more flowers. I think I got some like sulfur cosmos. Oh my gosh, the little like yellow ones, and they did not eat those. So I found out, did more research online on what deer resistant plants would do well in the area and kind of gravitated more towards those plants. At least for the time being. I still grew like sunflowers and things like that, but yeah, that was so devastating as a kid. But looking back on it now, it's kind of funny. And during this time, I made friends with my neighbor. She was the sweetest lady. She was a widow, and so she just had a lot of time on her hands. And one of the things that she would do was go outside and just garden on her property. And I just remember the front of her house had this big circle bed that she would plant up with wave petunias every single year. And it was just the prettiest thing. I just always remember seeing that. And I, always chatted with her because I had a little garden bed next to her property. So we would always just chat about flowers. And I do miss that neighbor. But fast forward a little bit later, me and my mom, really she came there for moral support, but I wanted to kind of learn more about gardening. So we joined a gardening club called the Primrose Gardening Club. I was 13, 14 at this time, and it was filled with the most precious ladies. I was probably the only one under the age of like 55. My mom was probably in her 40s at that time. And so it was just all of these older ladies that loved gardening. And so they loved having us there. I really enjoyed chatting with them about all things flowers. We went on field trips. We went over to each other's houses and looked at gardening, looked at each other's gardens. So it was really fun to see other people in their gardens. And it was just really cool to meet and learn about flowers. And one of the things we did in this club was we went to the nurseries around us, and they did presentations and taught us all about gardening. And one of the presentations was at the nursery that was close to my house called Telly's Greenhouse. This was in Troy, Michigan. and we learned all about the new annuals for the year. That was super fun. Lots of really, I always remember like the calibrachoas and petunias just because they're always making new varieties of those. So I remember that. And the owner came up to me after the presentation and was like, wow, I've been seeing you at the nursery quite a bit. Why don't you work here? And I was like, well, I'm not old enough to work because I was like 14 at the time. And so I don't know what the age is in other states, but in Michigan, you had to be like 14 and 9 months in order to start working. And so literally when I was 14 and 9 months, I sent in my application there. I talked with the owner, George, and I started working there. I was in track and field at the time at the high school because I was a freshman in high school. And I mean, I love track and field, but I was like, you know, I think I'm gonna spend my time at the nursery instead of running laps around here. So I ended up quitting track in high school. I did it all through middle school and got the job at the nursery and did not look back. I worked there like, it was the spring when I got hired, so I worked there like every single day. I just remember coming home with like, I was very tan by the end of the season, but yeah, I should have worn more sunscreen than I did there. But I was a bag boy, so basically, or a carry out. So if anyone needed help bringing things to their car, I was the person that did that when I first started working there. So that was my beginning of my journey working at Telly's Greenhouse, where I worked there for, gosh, three whole years. I worked at Telly's Greenhouse all throughout my entire high school career. And then in the wintertime, we would sell Christmas trees. I loved selling Christmas trees. We would wrap them up and tie them on people's houses, on their cars, so that they can bring them home. And it was really cold. Now, I did not like the cold when I lived in Michigan, and that was an outside job that I had to be outside in, which, you know, wasn't the best, but we had so much hot chocolate there that I was like totally fine with it. So I love hot chocolate. If that's something that I'll have every single night. Okay, so I worked there my entire high school career for 3 years, and I just learned so much about, you know, flowers and annuals and a lot of houseplants too. In the wintertime, we would do a lot of like houseplant work, but that's really where my love for like color and annuals came into play, because I was literally just at the nursery all day when I was working. And so I would take them home. I would buy plants, take them home all the time, literally all the time. And I'd come home and plant all sorts of things. I remember having it was a Musa Bazju, I think that's how you say it, but it was a like cold hardy banana that I would have in the front of my house. And that thing was so big. People would always ask us how I'm growing that. Can I take some leaves off of it? We had quite a bit of Indian culture in our neighborhood at the time, and they loved cooking with it. So they would always come over and ask us for leaves of the banana plants, which was so fun. I did get it to overwinter one year, and the next year it was like absolutely massive. I just loved that banana tree so much. I always craved living somewhere warmer during that time. I did not like the cold at all. So I would always plant things that would kind of remind me of a warmer climate. So I would plant bananas, palm trees, lots of like alocasias, even some like celotias. Lots of like bright tropical colors. I remember like lining the front of our house with like bright red begonias. I think it's just like the cocktail begonias, whatever like the standard begonias are. I would do that every single year just because it was pretty. I loved them, they were easy. And then I remember every spring I would plant hundreds of tulips there, and then I would do like a border of like pansies and muscari in the front. That was one of my favorites. I love muscari. Just the dainty blue flowers were just so pretty to have there. So anyways, that's what we did all of high school. I would make a lot of containers actually in our garden. Let's see if I can find some photos. I'll pop some up here of some container arrangements I made. But just looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm doing the same thing I did when I was in high school. So that's really fun to look back on it. Honestly, I think they were pretty good. they were pretty good, all things considered. So we graduated high school in 2015, and I was kind of at a standstill. I did not know where I was going to go to college even after I graduated. It was kind of like a last minute decision. I did apply to a bunch of schools earlier on in the winter time, but I didn't really make a decision yet. There was still like a little bit of time to do, so my mom and I went and we looked at a few different schools while this was happening. We went to Florida. I was going to look into the horticulture program at the University of Florida, and I think it was Tallahassee, somewhere in northern Florida it was. We also went to, this was the summer before actually, we went to Colorado, the University of Colorado, or no, Colorado State. This was in Fort Collins, and checked out their horticulture program. And then literally in June, right after I graduated, I was like, oh wow, let me go check out ASU, because I applied for ASU. I forgot I applied for that. So we flew out to ASU. I absolutely loved ASU. I really wanted to live somewhere warmer. That's why I gravitated towards Florida. And then I also just loved the mountains in Colorado. That's why I applied for Colorado State. But I didn't really put the two together that Arizona has both warm weather and mountains. So it was kind of just like a little dream come true. We came here during a huge heat wave. It was like 115 the day we flew in here. And I was like, wow, this isn't horrible. Obviously, like, it's a shock flying down and just being in baking heat, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I remember just being in a pool basically all day when I wasn't going and touring the campuses, which is usually early in the morning. It was a very early tour. I remember doing that. So we found out that I had a pretty good scholarship at ASU, so we decided that we were going to go to ASU. Literally that July, we flew back to Michigan, packed up my parents' trailer, and then we drove down to Arizona to stay in the trailer until we found a place to live. So we did that, found a condo, moved into the condo in August, and then started school, and then I was a student at ASU, which was so exciting. It happened so quickly, and I was like, wow, we're doing this, we're moving. I was kind of in shock. It was kind of great. I did have a friend who was here at that time who also went to ASU, so that was kind of nice, still having that there. But we started school. I decided to get 2 degrees, one in business communications, and then the other one in sustainable horticulture, which I think was a good decision. I loved my time at ASU. We did a lot of things there. I had three different internships. I was like, wow, let me think about this. We had 3 different internships, and really, I just wanted to keep myself busy during the summer months. I needed some extra cash, so I decided to apply to a couple different internships. During the weekends, though, just like throughout the entire year, I was actually, for my first 2 years of college, I was a busboy at a local diner. It was like a breakfast diner. So I did that. I do not miss that at all. I just remember kids with like sticky syrup fingers, and that was like the worst thing ever. So I quit that. I did like being a bartender at the time, or not being in the service industry, because the hours were a little bit more flexible. We got tips. So my mom lived next to a golf course, so I decided to apply as a bartender at the golf course. So I was a morning bartender for 3 years after I was a busboy. Really, it wasn't anything crazy. I served mimosas and like Bloody Marys, things like that during the weekends. But during my summers, we had 3 different internships that were super fun. My first one was I love this one. This one was a internship at the Desert Botanical Garden. This is in Phoenix, kind of like the center of Phoenix. And this one, I learned all about desert landscaping. We rotated like between sections. So like the first section I was like at the front of the garden, where we did a lot of like more just desert stuff. like more like sculptural desert, like rocks and desert. I don't know if there's rocks all over the desert. Anyways, we did that. And then the next one was like more of like a wildflower section and like butterfly. There was a butterfly pavilion, so we worked in the butterfly pavilion. And then there's CDL where they did like all the vegetables and things like that. So I rotated throughout the garden with different landscapers and really learned about everything that survived and thrived even in the summertime here in Arizona. And it was super, super informative to learn all those things. I just remember how hot it was because literally I was up. I started work at like 6 in the morning and we were done by like 2. It was one of the hottest summers I have ever encountered, but we survived. we definitely survived. And during these summers though, we would wear long sleeves and long pants and to really protect us from the sun, and then like brim hats and everything. We did cut through a cactus one time. I remember like being so fascinated by the inside of a cactus. I'm like, wow, this is crazy how they like grow and how they work. And it was just really fun. Everyone at the garden is so kind. I really did enjoy my experience at the Desert Botanical Garden. The next one is definitely the most memorable. This one was the horticulture internship at Disney World in Florida. Yes, I went all the way to Florida for an internship. And this one was great because I was surrounded by a lot of like people my age that I really could connect with and make some really fun bonds with. Now, it is very humid in Florida, and I was not prepared. Well, I was prepared, but I was literally just drenched every single day by the end of it, just in sweat, because the humidity, the dry heat and the humidity are like totally different animals there. But it was so fun, you guys. We would start work so early. We had 3 different, depending on the park you were working in, we worked at 4 different parks. Epcot, Animal Kingdom, Magic Kingdom, and Hollywood Studios. You either had to work at 1, 3, or 5 in the morning. So sometimes I would literally be waking up at, 12:30 in the morning to get to work. No, not 12, 11:30 in the morning to get to work. No, 11:30 at night to get to work at 1 in the morning. That was crazy. It was more of like a night shift situation, but it was so cool being at the parks at Disney in the middle of the night when all the crew members were doing their thing. We had like headlamps on that were like, we were weeding the beds, and it was so cool, planting new flower beds. But it was just such a magical experience doing that. And then really like I fell in love with just massive amounts of color there. We started to work during the home and garden, was it home and garden or flower and something show? And so there was just so many flowers at, I think this was Epcot. There was topiaries and flowers just like everywhere in the park. And it was just, I was like in Wonderland. I was like, wow, this is so much to take in. It was just absolutely breathtaking, but they take so much time and care to their flowers there. It's just one of the prettiest things. If you ever have time to go and just check out the flowers at Disney, it's like a whole thing. So spectacular. They change them out all the time, like every season, every color. And that's kind of where I get my like seasonality from. I just love switching things out based on the seasons. I remember they ripped out an entire bed to make way for like Halloween flowers. When we were leaving, we left in like August to go back to Arizona. They were doing that then. And I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. Who wouldn't want Halloween flowers? And that's kind of what I'm doing here too. A lot of like really seasonal, hyper seasonal flowers. And I think it would be fun to work there. I just don't think I could get used to waking up that early to go to work. It's almost like you're working at like a night shift at that point. It was just way too early, but it was so fun. It was definitely the funnest internships I had. I had lots of fun going to the parks after work with all of my new friends that I met at my internship. And my last internship was probably my most, I want to say boring internship, but it was in air conditioning, and that was kind of my goal. At that point, I was tired of being outside all summer. In my last 2, this one was just like a landscape design internship where we did different quotes for like larger projects for like plants and irrigation stuff, and then we went to site projects. It was kind of fun to see like projects on paper and then seeing them in person. I think that was definitely useful. But gosh, you guys, I love being outside. At least for like part of the day, even in the summertime, at least like a couple hours in the morning. I think that's really nice just to get some fresh air, to go outside, move around. I don't think I could be at a desk like that, but it was definitely interesting to see all of these huge projects, like freeway projects, and then seeing them in person was kind of cool to see. While we were doing our internships over the summertime, we were taking classes all fall, winter, and spring to finish our degrees. We did a lot of like horticulture classes, so we learned all about like desert landscaping, irrigation, vegetable gardening, all of these things to really round out my college experience. We ended up graduating in 2020 during right in the middle of COVID. We did not have a graduation. I didn't even go to my virtual graduation. Maybe I should have done that, but we graduated in 2020, and I still kept my job as a bartender just because I didn't want to rush into like a 9-to-5 job and kind of get like stuck in it. I always knew I wanted to do my own thing, like run my own business or what have you. So I kept that bartending job. And then I just started posting on like Instagram, really just pictures. Like I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just trying to like show people what I do, what I grow. That was really fun. And then in 2021, we started growing. I should back up a little bit. I moved in with Kyle in 2019. Yeah, 2019. And then 2 years later, 2 years later, we started to do a flower farm. Someone in his family owned a piece of property just a couple miles away from our house. And I was like, why don't we just grow flowers for fun? So we started to grow tons and tons of flowers. I had all of these seedlings. I had lots of room upstairs with grow lights where I could grow basically as many seedlings as I wanted to. So we started to grow out there. I kind of increased the space because it was a large space. There's probably like an acre of property. So I slowly started to, I would add 2 rows and then I would add 2 more rows and kind of incrementally grow the operation. I didn't really know what I was doing with it. I grew a lot of vegetables too out there, and then slowly turned it into just cut flowers. So I just kept posting and posting and posting, and then I met florists who were interested in purchasing my flowers that I was growing at the time. So I started to sell flowers. I thought, wow, I'm gonna be a flower farmer. I'm gonna grow lots of flowers. And that honestly was a really good business for a while now. We did that for, 3 years, for about 3 years now. And during that time, I did start to build my landscape like installation services where I would go over to people's houses and install flowers. I basically made a forum on my website where people could apply, where they could reach out and basically request these services. So we started to build that business, and unfortunately during this time, one of Kyle's family member that owned this property passed away. I did know that the family was going to sell the property eventually, so I kind of had it in the back of my head that I was going to pivot my business model to where I was going to stop growing cut flowers and just do the installation services. And honestly, when that happened, I was a little bit sad, honestly, because I was like, wow, we are losing this piece of land where I grew all these flowers on. But shortly after that, I was so happy that that happened. When you take a step back and look at things, that was really just a time suck. It took so much time to grow the flowers, and really at the end of the day, we were not making that much money selling the flowers. It really was for fun. Well, it was educational to learn how to grow them, but 2, it was content. I could post pictures of the flowers, make videos of them, teach people how to grow the flowers. So it was great in that aspect where I did learn a ton about growing flowers. Just from trial and error, I killed so many plants too doing this, but that's really the value in what I learned from growing all the cut flowers. And I kind of was like, wow, this is a great time to try something new and do something different. And honestly, have not looked back. So Now we just do the installations full-time. We do also have consultations available where we go over to people's houses and advise them on growing different flowers and plants and suggestions on their own personal backyard. So we did a lot of that stuff too, along with selling corms and bulbs and stuff like that on our website. So that's kind of what we do full-time now. And my goal now is to really just show people and showcase what you can grow in a hot climate. I know it can be tricky to see photos and pictures of people that live way up north or somewhere where it doesn't get 115 degrees. And so I really want to show people and showcase all the beautiful things that you can grow, even though we do live somewhere hotter. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope to make a lot more educational videos for you guys in the future and take you guys along with me when we do our installations in the fall. We have so many fun projects in store for you guys. I cannot wait to share with you guys. And we have all of our favorite seeds down below for you guys if you want to check that out. We will have our ranunculus and anemone corm sale coming up this fall, usually in mid-September. We will also have live plants available to ship to your doorstep. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.